What would you do if the very person who paid your bills treated you like dirt, and walking away meant your child might go hungry? That question haunted Janelle Harris every morning she stood outside the tall iron gates of the Langford estate. She was 32, a single mother, and a survivor of more storms than most could imagine. Life had tested her enough times to know that pride doesn't always fill an empty stomach. The mansion sat high on a hill in Atlanta's wealthy district, wrapped in silence and money. Its white stone walls gleamed under the Georgia sun, almost too bright, like it was daring the world to find a flaw. The Langfords didn't just live here, they ruled this place like modern royalty. Janelle wiped her palms on her thrift store slacks, steadied her nerves, and pressed the gate buzzer. A female voice crackled through the intercom, cold and clipped. "Yes? It's Janelle Harris, ma'am, the new housekeeper." A long pause. Then, "You're late." Her stomach dropped. It was Madison Langford, the lady of the house. The tone alone told Janelle everything she needed to know. This job wasn't going to be easy. Inside, the mansion looked like something from a magazine. Marble floors that reflected every movement, chandeliers glittering like stars, and expensive art that didn't even make sense to look at. It smelled like roses, glass cleaner, and old secrets. Madison appeared at the top of the staircase. Blonde hair, perfect posture, not a wrinkle out of place. She looked like someone who hadn't worked a day in her life, but whose tongue could cut glass. "You can start in the kitchen," she said. "And please, try not to break anything. The last girl was careless." Janelle nodded quietly. "Yes, ma'am." Madison's eyes trailed over her plain uniform, pausing just long enough to make Janelle feel small. "You'll find aprons in the laundry room," she said. "Try to look presentable." Janelle swallowed the lump in her throat. Presentable, like she wasn't already giving her best. But she smiled politely anyway. That's what she did. Smile through pain, through insults, through everything life threw at her. Hours passed. The mansion's silence was heavy. Every clock tick echoed. She dusted crystal, polished brass, and scrubbed spotless counters just to keep busy. Then she heard a voice behind her, a man's voice, calm and deep. "You must be the new help." She turned to see Richard Langford, Madison's husband. Mid-40s, sharp suit, but his eyes carried a softness that didn't match the wealth around him. "Yes, sir," Janelle said nervously. He smiled. "Welcome, Janelle. I hope my wife hasn't scared you off already." Janelle chuckled softly, unsure how to answer. "She's particular," she finally said. "That's one word for it." He left her with that small kindness, and for a moment, she exhaled. Not everyone in this house was cold. By evening, Janelle was exhausted. She'd been working since dawn, and her back ached. As she gathered cleaning supplies, Madison reappeared in the doorway, arms folded. "I see you've met my husband," she said sharply. "Yes, ma'am." Madison's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Good. Just remember, you're here to clean, not to chat." Janelle blinked, stunned. "Of course, ma'am." Madison took a slow step closer, lowering her voice. "I've had girls like you before. They always start polite. Then they forget their place." Janelle's heart pounded. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but she knew better. Talking back meant trouble. "I just want to do my job," she said quietly. Madison studied her for a long moment, then turned away. "See that you do." That night, when the house grew silent, Janelle sat in the staff quarters, staring at a faded picture of her 8-year-old son, Marcus. His smile gave her strength. "Just hold on, baby," she whispered. "Mama's doing this for you." But even as she prayed, she felt something strange in the air, like the house itself was watching her, waiting to see how much she could take before she broke. The wind outside howled softly through the trees, and in that silence, Janelle made a promise to herself. She would endure. No matter how cruel Madison Langford became, she would survive. What Janelle didn't know was that before the week was over, she would be humiliated, tested, and forced to make a choice that would change every life inside that mansion. Pause beat. If you're watching this for the first time on Top Core, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because what's about to unfold will make you question everything you thought you knew about pride, pain, and power. Fade out on the image of Janelle staring at the glowing mansion windows. The next morning, the house smelled of brewed coffee and tension. Madison's footsteps echoed across the marble floors like the ticking of a clock, sharp, deliberate, impatient. Janelle had been up since dawn, polishing silver and wiping counters that were already spotless. She could feel Madison's eyes on her the whole time, like a hawk circling prey. "You missed a spot," Madison said, tapping her manicured nail against a table that gleamed like glass. Janelle looked. There was no spot. "Yes, ma'am," she replied anyway, wiping it again. Madison smirked. "Good. At least you learn fast." Every word felt like a test. Janelle tried to stay invisible, but Madison wouldn't let her. She criticized her hair, her shoes, even her posture. It was never about cleaning. It was about control. Around noon, Janelle overheard Madison on the phone, laughing to a friend. "She's sweet, bless her heart. You know how they are. Strong backs, not much up here." Her finger tapped her temple. Janelle froze. She wasn't meant to hear it, but she did. For a moment, she wanted to walk out that door, but then she thought of Marcus again. The bills stacked at home. The eviction notice folded under her Bible. So she took a deep breath and kept working. Hours later, Richard returned from his trip. The energy in the house shifted instantly. Madison turned from cruel queen to charming hostess. Her laughter filled the halls, fake, but flawless. When Richard complimented Janelle's work, Madison's smile tightened. "Oh, she's learning," Madison said, "though she still needs a bit of polish." Richard raised an eyebrow. "She's doing fine, Madison. Let's not make her feel small." That moment, those simple words, were gasoline on a quiet fire. Madison's face stiffened. She excused herself gracefully, but Janelle could feel the rage pulsing beneath her calm tone. Later that evening, Madison called her to the living room. "I want the floors redone," she said. "Tonight." "It's almost midnight, ma'am." "Then I suggest you start now." Janelle hesitated. "My shift." "Do you want to keep your job, Ms. Harris?" Janelle lowered her head. "Yes, ma'am." She worked through the night, scrubbing and polishing until her hands blistered. When the sun came up, Madison inspected the floors with a satisfied smile. "Good. Maybe next time you'll understand who's in charge." Janelle was too tired to answer, but in that quiet morning light, she made another silent vow. If this woman wanted to break her, she'd have to try harder. But as Madison walked away, Janelle didn't notice Richard standing on the stairs above them, watching, listening, and from the look in his eyes, he had just heard everything. How far would you let someone humiliate you before you finally stood up and said, "Enough"? That question whispered in Janelle's mind as she adjusted the silverware for the Langfords' charity dinner. The dining room looked like a movie set: crystal lights, white roses, and a table long enough to seat 15 of Atlanta's most powerful people. Every glass sparkled, every napkin folded like origami. Janelle had worked on the setup all day. Her back throbbed, but she smiled anyway. Tonight was important. Madison had warned her that one wrong move could embarrass the family. By 7 p.m., guests began to arrive. Women in gowns that shimmered like champagne. Men in suits worth more than Janelle's car. Cameras flashed outside as valet attendants opened doors. Inside, Janelle moved quietly between tables, refilling glasses, adjusting candles, blending into the background like she was invisible. But Madison didn't let her stay invisible for long. She glided across the room, radiating confidence, holding court like she owned the night. "Everyone, please, take your seats," she said, her voice smooth as silk and twice as cold. Richard followed behind, his smile polite but distant. He looked distracted, as if something heavy sat on his conscience. Dinner began. Laughter filled the air, along with the faint sound of jazz. Madison bragged about their foundation, their travels, their connections. Every time she spoke, she subtly reminded the table of their status. And then it happened, one tiny moment that would ignite everything. Madison lifted her wrist to show off a diamond bracelet, her latest purchase. "Richard surprised me with this," she said sweetly. "Tiffany's limited collection." The women gasped in admiration. She smiled, but when she looked down, her face froze. The bracelet was gone. Her eyes darted around the table, then toward the floor, then toward Janelle. The room went silent. Madison's tone sharpened. "Janelle, did you see my bracelet? It was right here." Janelle blinked, startled. "No, ma'am, I didn't." Madison stood, voice rising. "It didn't just walk away by itself. Everyone was at the table." Janelle's heart raced. "I promise, ma'am, I didn't touch it." Madison's eyes narrowed. "Then where is it?" The guests exchanged nervous looks. No one spoke. Richard shifted uneasily, but stayed quiet. "Empty your pockets," Madison demanded. Janelle froze. "Ma'am, please." "Do it." Janelle hesitated. Every eye in that room was on her. She reached into her pockets. Just tissues, a folded grocery list, nothing else. "See?" she said softly. But Madison wasn't satisfied. "Then maybe you hid it somewhere else." She stepped closer, her voice dripping with contempt. "Trash like you doesn't deserve to touch this dress, let alone something from Tiffany's." The insult hit like a slap. Gasps rippled across the table. Janelle's hands trembled. She whispered, "Please, don't do this." Madison crossed her arms. "If you didn't take it, prove it. Get on your knees and apologize for wasting everyone's time." Richard spoke suddenly. "Madison," but she cut him off. "Stay out of this." Tears burned behind Janelle's eyes. Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to walk out, to protect what little dignity she had left. Instead, she whispered a prayer under her breath and knelt. The room was silent except for the faint click of someone's phone camera. Madison tilted her chin proudly. "That's better." For a long moment, no one breathed. Then, from the hallway, a voice broke the silence. "Madison." Richard stood in the doorway, face pale with disbelief. He'd seen everything. But Madison didn't flinch. She simply smiled, poured herself another glass of wine, and said, "Perhaps next time she'll remember her place." The laughter that followed felt like poison. Janelle stood slowly, eyes glistening, and walked out of the room without a word. No one stopped her. What they didn't know, what Madison didn't know, was that one of the guests, a young journalist named Lydia Chen, had recorded the entire humiliation on her phone, and that recording was about to change everything, fade to silence. Camera lingers on the blinking red recording light. That night, after the last guest left and the laughter faded, the Langford mansion was quiet again, but inside something had broken that no amount of money could fix. Richard Langford stood alone in the hallway, staring at the place where Janelle had knelt. The air still carried her humiliation like a scar burned into the walls. He'd said nothing when it mattered most. That silence ate at him. Upstairs, Madison sipped wine in front of her mirror, satisfied. She believed she'd proven her authority, not realizing she'd also proven her cruelty. Meanwhile, Janelle sat in her small apartment miles away, holding Marcus in her arms. He was asleep, his little hand resting against her chest. She didn't cry. She couldn't. She was too numb. Her mother called. "Baby, you home?" "Yeah, Mama." "You sound tired." "I'm fine," Janelle lied. Her mother hesitated. "You don't sound fine. What happened?" Janelle closed her eyes, hearing Madison's words again. "Trash like you." She wanted to tell the truth, but shame tied her tongue. "Nothing, Mama. Just a long day." After she hung up, she looked at Marcus again. He deserved a mother he could be proud of, but right now, she felt smaller than ever. Across town, Richard sat in his study, staring at the fireplace. His mind replayed every second of that dinner, the shock, the silence, his own cowardice. He poured himself a drink, but it didn't help. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. He'd built his fortune on ethics, on leadership, on doing the right thing. Yet tonight, he'd watched an innocent woman be humiliated and said nothing. When Madison entered the room, she found him still sitting there. "Are you just going to brood all night?" she asked lightly. He didn't answer. She poured herself another glass of wine. "You're too sensitive, Richard. It's part of the problem. That woman needed to be reminded of her place." He turned to her slowly. "You humiliated her in front of everyone." She embarrassed herself. "No, Madison, you did." Her jaw tightened. "Don't lecture me in my own house." "Our house," he corrected quietly. The silence between them was sharp. Madison rolled her eyes. You always take their side. You think money makes us equal? It doesn't. Some people are made to serve. Richard stood. If that's truly what you believe, then maybe I don't know you at all. Madison smirked. You'll thank me when the staff learns respect. He left the room without another word. Upstairs, as she slipped off her jewelry, Madison noticed something on her daughter's nightstand. A tiny, glittering bracelet. Her bracelet. Her breath caught. For a second, panic flickered in her eyes. Then she swallowed it down. No one could ever know. She slid it into her drawer quietly and locked it. The next morning, the story spread faster than wildfire. Someone had leaked Lydia's video to social media. Within hours, Nasser Langford dinner was trending across every platform. Clips of Madison's voice, "Trash like you doesn't deserve to touch this dress," played on repeat. News anchors called it a modern-day servant humiliation. Influencers dissected it. Celebrities reposted it. And in the middle of it all, Janelle sat at her kitchen table staring at her phone, tears rolling down her cheeks. She hadn't asked for this. She just wanted peace. The phone rang again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Ms. Harris. Yes? This is Richard Langford. I need to see you. Her chest tightened. Why? Because what my wife did was wrong, and I should have stopped it. The line went silent. Janelle didn't know what to say. The man who'd watched her humiliation was now asking for forgiveness. But what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that Madison had already hired someone to track down whoever leaked that video. And when Madison found out it wasn't just a random leak, but someone inside her own circle, the real war would begin. Fade out on the image of Madison's hand unlocking the drawer, the diamond bracelet glinting in the dark. What does guilt sound like? For Richard Langford, it sounded like the knock of his own conscience. By the third morning after the dinner, his phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Reporters, shareholders, even friends he'd known for years wanted answers. His wife's face was everywhere, on talk shows, news sites, YouTube shorts with captions like "racist socialite exposed at dinner." He'd built a billion-dollar reputation as a man of ethics, a face of modern philanthropy. But now the man behind that image had stood by and watched cruelty unfold in his own home. Richard couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. He'd told Madison to issue a public apology, but she refused. She's lucky all she lost was her dignity, Madison had said coldly. The internet forgets in a week. But it didn't. The comments kept coming, louder each hour. How can she talk about charity and treat a black woman like that? Her husband sat there and watched. That's worse. Every headline felt like a personal indictment. By noon, Richard told his driver, "Take me to the south side." The man hesitated. "Sir?" "You heard me. Janelle Harris's address." The car moved through Atlanta's busy streets, from marble mansions to cracked sidewalks lined with small grocery stores and barbershops. When it stopped outside a narrow red brick apartment building, Richard sat still for a long moment. He wasn't used to knocking on doors like this. Usually, doors opened for him before he reached them, but guilt has a way of humbling even the proudest man. He climbed the stairs, heart pounding. He could smell fried chicken from someone's kitchen and hear kids laughing down the hall. Then he saw her, Janelle, standing in her doorway, folding laundry. She froze when she saw him. "Mr. Langford?" she asked, voice trembling. "Please, call me Richard," he said quietly. Her eyes hardened. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to apologize." Janelle crossed her arms. "Your wife already did enough damage." "I know." He swallowed hard. "I should have stopped her." She said nothing. The air between them felt thick with memories neither wanted. Richard glanced at the small apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the toys scattered on the couch. Marcus peeked from behind her legs, clutching a toy car. Richard crouched down slightly. "Hey, buddy." Marcus smiled shyly, then ducked back behind his mother. "I'm not here for pity," Janelle said firmly. "If this is about saving your image—" "It's not," he interrupted. "It's about saving my soul." For the first time, her anger faltered. He continued, "I can't undo what she did, but I can try to make it right. I'll cover your lost wages and— money can't buy back respect, Mr. Langford." Her words hit him like a slap. He nodded slowly. You're right. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to face you. She looked at him for a long time. The billionaire who'd once been her employer, now standing small in her doorway. Finally, she said, "You can't fix what you refuse to stop, but you can start by telling the truth." He frowned. "What truth?" "That your wife still has that bracelet." Richard blinked. "What do you mean?" "I saw it. She had it before the dinner." He froze. "Are you sure?" "Positive. She accused me before even checking." Richard's stomach turned. His mind flashed to the locked drawer in Madison's dressing room. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked. "Because I'm done hiding," Janelle said. "And you should be too." Her voice didn't shake. It was steady, almost peaceful, like a woman who'd carried pain long enough to stop fearing it. He stared at her, realizing she had more courage than anyone in his mansion ever had. Before he could respond, a car screeched outside. A black SUV, tinted windows. Janelle glanced toward it nervously. Richard turned. 2 men in suits stepped out. One held a camera, the other a phone. "Mr. Langford, did you pay the maid to stay quiet?" The question hit like a bullet. Janelle's eyes widened. She whispered, "You need to go. Now." He turned toward her. "Did you call them?" "I'd never do that." He believed her, but someone had tipped them off. As flashes exploded around them, Janelle shut the door fast, locking it. Richard stood frozen in the hallway, surrounded by reporters shouting accusations. His mind spun. Someone wanted this to explode, and deep down, he already knew who it was. Camera cuts to Madison in her penthouse office, watching a live feed on her phone, a cruel smile on her lips. Madison Langford had always believed in control, of her image, her narrative, her world, and when the world turned on her, she did what she always did. She fought dirty. Her assistant, Chloe, stood nervously by her desk as Madison paced the floor. "Find me the person who leaked that video," Madison snapped. "We think it was one of the guests, maybe that journalist, Lydia Chen," Chloe stammered. "Then destroy her career," Madison hissed. "Every story she's written, every client she's worked for. Make them regret ever knowing her." Chloe hesitated. "And Mr. Langford?" Madison stopped pacing. "What about him?" "He's been seen with the maid. It's all over Twitter." Madison's expression hardened. "Perfect. Let them talk." She walked to the mirror, smoothing her hair. "He wants to play savior? Let's see how far he gets when people start questioning why he cares so much." Chloe swallowed. "You're suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything," Madison said coldly. "I'm just letting the rumor breathe." Across the city, Richard sat in his car, watching social media explode with headlines. "Billionaire's secret visits to humiliated maid." "Langford marriage in crisis." His PR team begged him to stay silent. His lawyer advised him to prepare for divorce papers. But all he could think about was Janelle, the fear in her eyes when those reporters appeared. Wait a minute. If this is your first time in Top Core American Storytelling, do well to like, comment, tell us the country you are watching from in the world. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share to your loved ones, friends, and family. Thank you for doing so. Let's continue. He knew Madison had set it up. She'd always had people on payroll who specialized in manipulation. But this was different. This was vengeance. He tried calling her. She didn't answer. That night, he went home to find her standing by the fireplace, sipping wine as if nothing had happened. "You sent them," he said quietly. Madison didn't turn. "Sent who?" "The reporters." She shrugged. "They were bound to find out eventually." "You wanted them to." Her silence was confirmation enough. He stepped closer. "You're destroying what's left of us." "No," she said, turning to face him. "You did that when you went crawling to her." He stared at her, speechless. Madison's voice cracked with sudden rage. "Do you know what people are saying about me, Richard? Do you have any idea what it's like to have the world hate you overnight? You should be protecting me." "I can't protect what's wrong, Madison." Her eyes filled with fire. "Then maybe you should leave." He nodded slowly. "Maybe I should." He grabbed his coat and walked out. For the first time in years, Madison realized she couldn't control him anymore. She hurled her glass at the wall. Across town, Janelle sat on her couch, scrolling through the same headlines. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't spoken to Richard since the visit. The last thing she wanted was more attention. Then her phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. "You think you can humiliate powerful people and walk free? Watch your back." She froze. Outside her window, the same black SUV idled across the street. Fear crept in like cold wind through a cracked door. Marcus stirred in his sleep. Janelle turned off the light and held him close. She whispered a prayer, not for safety, but for strength. Because deep down, she knew the storm was only beginning. Camera pans from the window to the street, headlights flashing across Janelle's trembling face as the SUV drives away slowly, its taillights glowing like watchful eyes. How far can a secret go before it becomes a weapon? That question haunted Janelle every night since that message appeared on her phone. She tried to ignore it at first. Maybe it was a troll, maybe someone online trying to stir things up. But the second message came 2 days later. "You were warned. Don't talk to the press." The words sent chills down her spine. She hadn't spoken to anyone, not even Richard. She'd kept quiet, kept her head down, went to work cleaning smaller houses just to survive. But it didn't matter. Someone wanted her silent. She called the police. They wrote a report, but one officer just sighed and said, "Without proof of direct harm, ma'am, we can't do much." She hung up, feeling invisible again. Marcus noticed the fear in her eyes. "Mama, why you lock the doors so much now?" She smiled weakly. "Just being careful, baby." But inside, she was breaking. Across town, Richard sat in a hotel suite, trying to piece his life back together. His lawyers were negotiating Madison's demands, half his assets, full control of the charity foundation, and public silence. Silence. Always silence. He ignored their advice and sent Janelle a text. "I know you're scared. Meet me somewhere safe. No press, no cameras, just us." He waited hours before she finally replied. "There's a church on 10th and Willow. Tomorrow. Noon." The next day, Janelle stood at the back pew of the small Baptist church, sunlight cutting through the stained glass. The air smelled faintly of old wood and candle wax. When Richard arrived, he looked different. No suit, no bodyguards, just a man stripped of pride. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. Janelle nodded. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," he replied. She glanced around. "They're watching me." "I know. They're watching me too." Richard sat down beside her. "Madison's behind it. The threats, the cameras, all of it." Janelle frowned. "Why? What does she gain from scaring me?" He looked down. "Control. She's afraid of what you know." "What I know is the truth," Janelle said firmly. "And I won't live in fear of her lies." Her voice echoed softly in the quiet church. For a moment, Richard just stared at her, admiring her courage. "You remind me of my mother," he said finally. "She worked 3 jobs. She never let anyone break her spirit." Janelle softened. "She raised you well then. Somewhere along the way, you just lost your fight." He smiled faintly. "Maybe you're helping me find it again." The moment hung between them, awkward, pure, human. Then the church doors creaked open. A shadow stepped in. Janelle's breath caught. The man from the SUV, tall, broad shoulders, black leather jacket. Richard turned sharply. "You followed me?" The man ignored him and looked straight at Janelle. "We warned you, Miss Harris." Before Richard could react, the man stepped closer and whispered something that made Janelle's face go pale. Then he slipped an envelope onto the pew beside her and walked out. Janelle stared at it, trembling. Richard reached for it, but she stopped him. "Don't. Not here." They left through the back door, avoiding the parking lot. Once they were safe in his car, she opened the envelope. Inside was a photo. Marcus playing outside her building. And beneath it, a note. "Keep quiet, or next time we won't just watch." Richard's hands clenched around the steering wheel. "They're threatening your son now?" Tears filled her eyes. "She's gone too far." He looked at her, jaw tight. "Then it's time the world sees what she's really capable of." Janelle shook her head. "If you go public, they'll twist it. They always do." "Not this time," he said. Not when we show them everything. She hesitated. And if we lose? He met her eyes. Then at least we lose telling the truth. The car fell silent. The city lights glowed outside, flickering like warning signals. In that moment, Janelle realized she wasn't just fighting Madison. She was fighting every lie that had ever silenced her kind, and she wasn't running anymore. But as they drove away, neither of them noticed the unmarked car following 2 blocks behind. Inside it, Madison's private investigator lifted a camera, snapping photos of their meeting. He smirked and sent a message. Got them both, together. By morning, the internet had exploded again. Billionaire caught sneaking around with ex-employee. Scandal deepens. Langford's affair rumors intensify. The photos of Richard and Janelle leaving the church were everywhere. The timing was too perfect, the angle too clean. Madison had planned it like a chess master setting the final checkmate. Inside her penthouse, she watched the chaos unfold, sipping coffee like victory itself. "See, Chloe," she said. "People believe what they want to believe. I don't even need to lie." Her assistant hesitated. "But what if Mr. Langford fights back?" Madison smiled. "Then he'll lose everything, just like she did." Across town, Janelle scrolled through her phone, her hands shaking. The headlines made her sick. Her picture, her face, plastered across every site. She whispered, "Oh God, they think I'm sleeping with him." Richard showed up at her apartment within hours, looking exhausted. "Don't open the door for anyone else," he warned. "Madison's feeding the media. It's war now." Janelle sat on the couch, staring blankly at the floor. "I didn't ask for this." "I know. She's painting me like some gold digger." He knelt in front of her. "You're not that. Don't ever let her make you believe it." For a second, their eyes met. Pain, anger, something almost tender, but too dangerous to name. Then the doorbell rang. Janelle froze. "Stay here," Richard said, moving quietly toward the door. He opened it slightly. A young woman stood there holding a folder. "Mr. Langford, I'm from Truthwire Media. We have evidence Madison Langford staged everything. The stolen bracelet, the reporters, even the threats." Janelle stood up slowly. "What are you talking about?" The woman opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos, timestamps, text messages, and one damning video. Madison handing a staff member the very same bracelet she later accused Janelle of stealing. Richard's eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" The woman smiled faintly. "A friend in her circle who's had enough of her games." Janelle looked between them. "So it's over?" The reporter shook her head. "Not yet. If you want the truth out, you'll need to go public. Together." Richard hesitated. "That means exposing everything. The threats, the lies, the blackmail." "It's the only way," she said. "But you'll be destroying your wife and your company." He looked at Janelle. "Maybe that's the price for doing what's right." The reporter nodded. "Think about it. You have 24 hours. After that, the story gets buried." When she left, silence filled the room. Janelle finally said, "She'll come for us if we do this." "She already has." Richard turned toward the window. Outside, thunder rolled through the sky like the city itself was warning them. He looked back at Janelle. "You don't have to be part of this." Her voice was steady. "I already am." He nodded slowly. "Then tomorrow, we tell the world." Just as he spoke, a shadow moved outside the window. A figure, watching. Janelle whispered, "Richard, someone's out there." He turned. Too late. The window shattered. A masked man burst in, grabbing Richard by the collar and throwing him to the ground. Janelle screamed. The man pointed a gun. "Stay out of it, Maid. This is what happens when people don't keep quiet." Richard groaned, struggling to his feet. "Who sent you?" The man sneered. "You already know." He swung the gun. Janelle lunged, grabbing his arm. The shot fired. Glass shattered again, smoke filling the air. The man bolted through the fire escape, disappearing into the storm. Richard rushed to Janelle. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears streaming. "He was going to kill you." He held her, trembling. "She's lost her mind." Janelle whispered, "No. She's just showing who she's always been." The sirens wailed in the distance. Rain poured down outside. thunder booming like judgment. As Richard held her close, one truth burned in both their hearts. This wasn't about status anymore. It was about survival. Camera fades out on the shattered window, a single drop of blood falling onto the floor beside a half-burned photo of Madison's face. What happens when the people you trusted most become the reason you can't sleep at night? That question echoed in Richard's head as police lights flashed across Janelle's apartment building. The officers moved in and out, collecting shell casings and taking statements. The air smelled of rain and gunpowder. Janelle sat wrapped in a blanket on the couch, her hands trembling. Richard sat beside her, jaw tight, trying to hide the bruises forming on his face. A detective approached. "Mr. Langford, you said you didn't recognize the shooter?" Richard hesitated. "I didn't, but I know who sent him." The detective raised an eyebrow. "You're saying your wife tried to have you killed?" Richard looked the man dead in the eyes. "I'm saying she's capable of it." The detective scribbled something down, but didn't look convinced. "We'll increase patrols around the building, but unless we can prove intent, our hands are tied." When they left, Janelle whispered, "They don't believe you." Richard turned to her. "They don't want to believe me. She has money, power, connections. To them, she's still the perfect wife." Janelle looked out the window, where reporters had already gathered below. "And to them," she said softly, "I'm still just the maid who doesn't know her place." He leaned forward. "You're more than that, Janelle. You always were." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't respond. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She opened the message, a photo of the gun on her living room floor. And beneath it, the words, "No one will believe you." Her body froze. Richard snatched the phone from her hands. "She's watching us." He paced the room, furious. "She's not even hiding anymore. She wants you terrified. She wants me silent." Janelle's voice cracked. "What if she wins, Richard?" He turned sharply. "Then I'll burn down everything she's built before I let her destroy you." Silence filled the room, the kind that carries both fear and resolve. Later that night, Janelle tucked Marcus into bed at her mother's house. The boy looked up at her, half asleep. "Mama, are the bad people gone?" She forced a smile. "Almost, baby, almost." But as she closed the door, she saw something taped to the hallway mirror, a printed newspaper headline, "Langford Scandal Deepens. Maid and CEO accused of fabricating attack." Her stomach dropped. The lies had already started spreading. Back in the city, Madison sat in her private study, sipping wine as her lawyer scrolled through social media. "The sympathy's turning," he said. "Public thinks they staged the attack for attention." Madison smirked. "Perfect. Let them destroy themselves." She picked up her phone and sent a final text to an unknown contact. "Make sure the footage gets out tomorrow, all of it." The next morning, the footage did exactly what she wanted. Clips of Janelle screaming during the shooting, edited to make it look like she'd been part of the setup. Richard shouting her name, holding her, twisted to look like an affair. Within hours, every news channel ran the same narrative. Janelle sat on her couch, watching her life crumble on screen. Her hands shook so hard she dropped the remote. Richard's phone rang non-stop. Investors, board members, reporters. One of his own directors said coldly, "You've become a liability, Richard. Step down, or we'll vote you out." He hung up, staring at the wall. "She's winning, Janelle. She's taking everything." Janelle looked at him, her eyes red from crying. "Then stop letting her." Her tone was sharp, raw. He blinked. "What are you saying?" She stood up. "You've been hiding behind guilt for too long. You saw what she did to me, and you stayed silent. That's how she got her power." Her voice trembled, but her words didn't. "Now she's using that same silence against both of us." Richard looked away, ashamed. "You're right." "No," she said softly. "I'm done being right. I want justice." She grabbed her phone, scrolled through her contacts, and tapped one name, Truthwire, L. Sanders. Richard's eyes widened. "You're calling her?" Janelle nodded. "It's time the world hears our side." As the call connected, Janelle's heartbeat pounded like thunder. "Lydia, it's Janelle Harris. We're ready to talk." The reporter's voice came through, calm but urgent. "Then meet me tonight. Off record first. Bring proof. Any proof." Janelle looked at Richard. Do we have proof? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small drive. Everything. Every text. Every email she ever sent me about you. Janelle stared at it, realizing this could destroy Madison. Or them. She exhaled slowly. Then let's finish this. As they stepped out into the night, headlights flashed from across the street. A car engine revved, following. Janelle whispered, Richard, someone's tailing us. He gripped the steering wheel. Let them. Tonight we stop running. The storm clouds gathered again, as if the heavens themselves were bracing for what was about to unfold. The diner was nearly empty, flickering lights, faint jazz on the radio, smell of burnt coffee and grease. Janelle sat in the booth with her hoodie up, eyes darting to the window every few seconds. Richard sat across from her, his face hidden behind a cap. Lydia Sanders, the Truthwire reporter, slid into the booth beside them. You brought it? She asked quietly. Richard handed her the flash drive. Everything Madison's ever done. Emails, transfer records, even private threats. Lydia plugged it into her laptop. Her eyes widened as she scrolled. Oh my God, she wired money to 2 of her husband's security men the day before the shooting. Janelle's chest tightened. You mean she paid for the attack? Lydia nodded. That's what it looks like. Richard exhaled hard. We need to go public before she buries this too. The reporter shook her head. No, not yet. If you leak this without legal backing, she'll twist it. We need confirmation. From who? Janelle asked. Lydia looked up. From one of the men she paid. Silence. Then Lydia said something that made Janelle's blood run cold. I think I know where to find him. Hours later, they drove to a run-down motel on the edge of the city. The rain hadn't stopped. It fell in sheets, drumming on the windshield. Lydia parked behind a dumpster. His name's Cole Ramsey, former security for Madison. He's scared, but he said he'd talk, if he's protected. They climbed the stairs to room 7B. The hallway smelled of mold and cigarettes. Lydia knocked twice. Cole, it's me. The door creaked open. A tall man stepped out, nervous eyes scanning the hallway. You weren't followed? Richard said, No. We just want the truth. Cole rubbed his hands together. She told me to scare the maid, make her back off, but her husband got in the way. I swear I never meant to fire that gun when it went off when she grabbed me. Janelle's voice trembled. So she sent you? He nodded. Madison Hale. Paid me $50,000 in cash. Lydia pressed record on her phone. Say that again clearly. Cole repeated it, voice shaking. As soon as he finished, tires screeched outside. Cole's eyes widened. They found me. Richard moved fast. Get the laptop, Janelle. We're leaving. They bolted out the back, rain pouring, tires spinning on wet pavement. A black SUV sped past, headlights cutting through the dark. Janelle clutched the laptop against her chest. They'll kill him, Richard shouted. Keep running. Gunshots cracked behind them. Cole screamed. Then silence. By the time police arrived, Cole Ramsey was gone. And so was the proof. Janelle stood under the flashing lights, soaked and shaking. Lydia whispered, They'll think we did this. Richard looked at Janelle, fear in his eyes. She's erasing every witness. Janelle clenched her fists. Then we'll be the witnesses. The reporter turned to them. That means going live. No scripts, no lawyers, just truth. Richard nodded slowly. Tomorrow morning. Janelle looked up at the gray sky, voice steady despite the tears. She took everything from me, but she's not taking my voice. The screen fades to black, thunder crashes, a final echo. If you were her, would you risk everything just to be heard? Have you ever watched someone destroy your life on national television and still find the courage to face them? That was Janelle's reality as dawn broke over the city. Rainwater still clung to her coat when she stepped into the studio. The newsroom buzzed with whispers, producers rushing between screens, assistants holding coffee cups that trembled as the truth approached. Richard was already there, looking like a man walking into a courtroom. You sure about this? He asked quietly. Janelle nodded. If I don't speak today, she'll rewrite everything tomorrow. The anchor, a woman named Terry Monroe, approached with a sympathetic smile. We'll start live in 10 minutes. Once you're on camera, there's no going back. Janelle smiled faintly. Good, I'm tired of living in the shadows. She adjusted her microphone as producers counted down the seconds. Cameras rolled, lights flooded her face, and the broadcast began. Terry turned to the camera. We're joined this morning by Janelle Harris and Richard Langford, the pair at the center of the controversy surrounding the Langford household. Janelle, why are you here today? The studio went silent. Janelle's voice trembled at first, then grew firm. Because I was humiliated, threatened, and nearly killed for something I didn't do. She turned slightly, looking straight into the lens, straight into millions of homes. I was a maid in the Hale residence. I was accused of stealing by a woman who thought her money gave her the right to destroy people like me. She tore my uniform, she called me names I'll never forget, and when the truth came out, she tried to erase me. Gasps rippled through the studio. Richard's eyes glistened as he spoke. That woman was my wife, and I let her get away with too much, but this time I won't. Terry leaned in. Mr. Langford, are you saying your wife orchestrated the attack at Janelle's home? Richard hesitated. I'm saying she paid for silence, but we're done being silent. The anchor turned back to Janelle. You realize the consequences of these accusations could destroy her reputation? And yours? Janelle nodded. That's fine, because my son can't eat reputation. He eats truth. The audience erupted in quiet applause. The camera zoomed closer. Janelle continued, her tone cutting through the tension. For years, women like me have been invisible. We clean their floors, raise their kids, keep their homes together. But when something goes wrong, we're the first ones they blame. Not anymore. The broadcast spread like wildfire. Social media exploded. Hashtags like Nasher Justice for Janelle and Tjacht Stand with the Maid began trending. Across town, Madison watched from her penthouse, wine glass trembling in her hand. Her lawyer muttered, "She's ruining you." Madison's jaw clenched. No, she's ruining herself. She dialed a number. Do it now. Within minutes, a flood of fake evidence hit the internet. Edited clips, altered messages, even fake receipts showing Janelle taking money from Richard. Comment sections turned toxic. News hosts debated live. Some called Janelle brave, others called her manipulative. At the studio, Terry's producer whispered something in her earpiece. The anchor froze, then looked at Janelle. We're receiving breaking news that may contradict your claims. The screen behind them lit up, a video playing of Janelle and Richard in an embrace, cropped to look intimate. The audience gasped. Janelle's eyes widened. That's not what it looks like. Terry raised her hands. We'll cut to commercial. As the cameras went dark, Janelle turned to Richard, trembling. She's framing us again. He grabbed her hand. Then we hit back harder. Terry looked between them. You've got 1 minute before we're back live. You want to walk off or finish this? Janelle exhaled. We finish it. When the show returned, Janelle leaned forward and spoke with fire in her voice. That video is edited, and you know what's sad? It's easier for people to believe I'm a liar than to believe a rich woman can be cruel. The room fell silent. She continued, I don't want pity. I want accountability. And if anyone watching has ever been humiliated for being who you are, this fight is for you. The anchor sat speechless. The studio clapped softly, breaking the silence. But just as the cameras cut off, Janelle's phone buzzed. A message, no name, just 3 words. You made a mistake. Her blood ran cold. She turned to Richard. She's not done. He looked out the window, where 2 black SUVs were parked across the street. No, he said grimly. She's just getting started. The tension was thick enough to choke on. The world had finally heard Janelle's voice. But now, Madison was about to make sure it was silenced forever. The city pulsed with chaos. Headlines blared across every screen. CEO's wife denies involvement in Maid scandal. Langford affair rumors explode. And Maid story questioned amid leaked footage. Madison Hale stood before a row of cameras, wearing white, calm, elegant, untouchable. Her lawyer stood beside her, holding a prepared statement. Mrs. Hale, shouted a reporter, did you order the attack on your husband and his maid? She smiled faintly. Absolutely not. I'm a victim of lies and manipulation by 2 unstable individuals who are trying to extort my family.
The cameras flashed wildly.
Madison's voice dripped with false grace. I have nothing but compassion for the underprivileged. It breaks my heart that my kindness has been twisted into cruelty. Back at Janelle's apartment, the TV flickered with the press conference. Janelle gripped the edge of her couch until her knuckles turned white. She's flipping the script, Richard muttered. She's making herself the victim. Janelle stood. Then we'll stop letting her control the story. Richard turned. How? She walked to the window, by showing what she doesn't want anyone to see. She opened her phone and scrolled to a hidden folder. Videos, photos, recordings. Her proof. I saved everything, Janelle said. Every insult, every threat, every bruise she left on my heart. Richard's eyes widened. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't think anyone would care, but they care now. She turned, determination blazing in her eyes. We'll release it tonight, all of it. He hesitated. Janelle, this could ruin me too. She looked at him sharply. Then maybe it's time you stop worrying about what's already broken. The clock ticked past midnight. Thunder rolled outside. Richard and Janelle uploaded the first video, the moment Madison ripped her uniform during the dinner party. The sound of her laughter echoed through the clip. Within minutes, the internet exploded again. But this time, in Janelle's favor. Millions watched, thousands commented. Even major news outlets started questioning Madison's story. Richard sat beside her, watching as "Je expose Madison Hale" became the top trend. He smiled faintly. Looks like truth still has a pulse. But just as they began to breathe again, a loud knock hit the door. Janelle froze. Who is it? A deep voice replied, Police, open up. Richard's heart dropped. He opened the door slowly. 2 officers stepped inside. Mr. Langford, Ms. Harris, the lead officer said, you're both under investigation for conspiracy and fraud. You need to come with us. Janelle's jaw dropped. What? The officer continued, we have a warrant based on financial transfers linked to the attack. Richard turned pale. She planted it. She set us up again. They were handcuffed in front of flashing cameras. Reporters swarmed the street, shouting questions as they were led away. Janelle's mother watched from the TV at home, tears running down her face. Baby girl, what did they do to you? At the precinct, Janelle sat in the interrogation room. The light above her flickered. A detective walked in, holding a folder. Miss Harris, he said, someone wants to see you. The door opened, and Madison walked in, escorted by her attorney. Janelle's breath caught. You have no shame. Madison smiled. Oh, sweetie, shame is for people who lose. She leaned close, whispering, I told you no one would believe you. Janelle stared straight at her. You're right, they didn't. But they will. Madison tilted her head mockingly. You keep saying that, but the only voice they'll hear next is mine. As she left the room, Janelle's chest rose with fury. The detective returned. She's powerful, Miss Harris. You want to beat her? Then give me something real. Janelle whispered, You'll have it. Just not tonight. Because somewhere, deep in her phone's cloud storage, there was still one file Madison didn't know existed, a secret recording from the night everything began. And that single file could burn down an empire. You ever wonder what would happen if the one truth that could save you also had the power to destroy everyone around you? For Janelle, that truth lived inside a small gray phone, cracked, battered, and hidden deep in a forgotten drawer of her old uniform closet. It was the night after her arrest. The cell walls smelled of damp concrete and fear. Richard was in the next block, pacing endlessly. She could hear his footsteps through the wall. A soft knock came at the bars. Ms. Harris? It was Detective Malone, a tired-looking man with gray eyes and a voice that carried both doubt and quiet respect. I just got the preliminary forensic report, he said. The money transfers, they trace back to an offshore account, under your name. Janelle's heart sank. That's impossible. I know, he interrupted. But whoever did this knows what they're doing. She looked up at him, desperate. Detective, if I can give you proof, video proof, can you get me out of here? He studied her face for a long moment. If it's as good as you say, I can get the DA to listen, but you've got to get it to me. Her mind raced. That phone, the one she thought was lost after Madison tore her uniform. She'd hidden it under the baseboard at the Hale mansion, afraid to even look at it. It held the secret recording she'd made the night of the dinner party. Madison's voice, cruel and raw, bragging about putting the help in their place. That was her bulletproof truth. "Detective," she whispered, "if I can tell you where it is, can you trust the right person to get it?" He nodded. "Who?" "Richard's daughter, the silent one." Malone frowned. "The kid? Why her?" Janelle's eyes softened. "Because she's seen it all, and she's tired of being silent too." Meanwhile, across town, Madison's daughter, Emily Langford, sat in her mother's luxury suite, knees tucked under her chin, watching her parents' faces flood every screen. Her mother had forced her to stay off social media, but she couldn't stop herself. She saw the hashtags. She saw the comments. Some called Janelle a liar, but others told stories that sounded just like hers. "My boss humiliated me for being black. They said I was stealing when I was only cleaning. They fired me because I spoke up." Each post hit Emily like a hammer to the chest. That's when she got the message. Unknown number. It simply said, "If you want the truth, go to your old house under the baseboard, closet in the maid's room." Her hands shook. The message was unsigned, but something in her gut told her who it was. That night, Emily snuck out. She drove in silence through the rain until the Hale mansion loomed ahead, dark, empty, guarded by memories. She slipped inside through the back door. The air smelled of lemon cleaner and loneliness. Flashlight in hand, she found the maid's room, small, quiet, almost sacred. She dropped to her knees, pulled back the rug, and pried at the wooden baseboard with trembling fingers. There it was, a tiny phone, wrapped in a torn piece of blue uniform cloth. The moment she turned it on, a single file appeared, Audio Truth MP3. She pressed play. Madison's voice filled the silence. "I told her to clean it again. She looked at me like I owed her respect. These people forget their place. So, I reminded her." Emily's stomach turned. The recording continued. Laughter, a sound of fabric tearing, a cruel whisper. Maybe now she'll remember who she works for. Tears streamed down Emily's face. She pressed stop, clutching the phone like it was burning her hand. Outside, headlights flashed across the windows. Someone else was there. A shadow moved past the hallway mirror. Tall, slow, deliberate. "Emily," a voice called. Her mother's voice. Emily froze. "Put the phone down, sweetheart," Madison said softly, stepping into view. "You don't understand what's happening." Emily backed away. "I understand enough. You hurt her." Madison's smile faltered. "Everything I did was to protect our family." "You humiliated her," Emily shouted. "You destroyed everything. And for what?" Madison's eyes hardened. "For control. Something you'll never understand until the world tries to take it from you." Emily's hand tightened around the phone. "Then let them take everything, because you don't deserve any of it." She ran. Out the door. Down the hall. Into the rain. Madison screamed after her. "Don't you dare betray me!" Emily didn't look back. She dialed a number, Detective Malone's. "It's Emily Langford," she gasped. "I have the proof. The real proof." He answered calmly. "Stay where you are. We'll protect you." But before she could reply, a black SUV screeched into the street, blocking her path. A man stepped out, one of Madison's private security. He reached for her wrist. "Mrs. Hale said to bring you home." Emily fought back, screaming, "No!" Her phone slipped from her hand, landing face up in a puddle, the recording still playing. Madison's cruel laughter echoing from the speaker. Malone, listening on the other end, heard everything. He jumped from his desk. "Trace that call now." As officers raced through the rain toward the Hale estate, Emily disappeared into the storm, clutching the only proof that could end her mother's empire. But when the police arrived, she was gone. Only the sound of the recording remained, playing faintly from a phone floating in the gutter. Wait a minute. If this is your first time in top-core American storytelling, do well to like, comment. Tell us the country you are watching from in the world. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share to your loved ones, friends, and family. Thank you for doing so. Let's continue. By morning, the city was at war with itself. Half the country demanded justice for Janelle. The other half demanded her arrest. And through it all, one name trended at the top: Emily Langford, the missing heiress. News anchors speculated, pundits debated, conspiracy theories exploded. Inside the county jail, Janelle watched the chaos unfold on a small TV screen. Her cellmate, a woman with tired eyes, whispered, "That's the girl, right? The one you said would help you?" Janelle nodded weakly. She had the proof. The guard approached. "Harris, you've got a visitor." Detective Malone sat across from her in the interrogation room, dark circles under his eyes. "She vanished," he said flatly. "We found her phone, but not her. The last ping was 2 miles from her mother's estate." Janelle's voice trembled. "She's in danger." "I know," Malone said, "but that recording was real. It's enough to buy you time." He slid a folder across the table. "You're being released pending investigation." Janelle's breath hitched. "You believe me now?" Malone nodded slowly. "I don't just believe you, Janelle. I think this whole city's about to." Outside the jail, flashes from cameras nearly blinded her. Reporters shouted, "Janelle, did you kidnap Emily? Did Richard help you hide her?" She said nothing. She just walked, head high, through the storm of microphones. Across town, Madison was losing control. Her publicist quit. Sponsors withdrew. Her husband had filed for divorce. Still, she held press conferences, pretending to grieve for her missing daughter. "I will not rest," Madison said, crocodile tears glistening, "until my little girl comes home." But deep down, she knew. Emily hadn't run away. Emily had turned against her. That night, as Janelle sat alone in her small apartment, the power flickered out. Then came a knock at the door. Soft, hesitant. She opened it slowly. Emily stood there, drenched, trembling, eyes red from crying. "Emily," Janelle whispered, pulling her inside. "Oh my God, you're safe." Emily fell into her arms. "She tried to stop me. I had to hide." "Do you still have the phone?" Emily reached into her jacket, pulling out a flash drive instead. "I made a copy. I wasn't sure I'd make it out alive." Janelle's hands shook as she held it. This is it. This will end everything." But before she could plug it in, a distant crash echoed from outside, glass shattering, tires screeching. Emily's face went pale. "She found me." Janelle grabbed her hand. "Then we run." They bolted for the back door, flash drive clutched tight. Outside, headlights cut through the dark, Madison's car tearing down the alley, her face visible through the windshield, twisted with fury. Janelle and Emily sprinted through the rain-soaked street, hearts pounding, freedom only steps away. When the engine roared louder, and the car swerved straight toward them, the flash drive flew from Janelle's hand, sliding across the wet pavement. Emily screamed her name, and then silence. Have you ever seen justice come for someone so fast? They didn't even realize it was already too late? Rain slammed against the pavement, thunder booming like war drums over the city. Janelle and Emily ran with everything they had, soaked to the bone, the night slicing cold against their faces. Behind them, Madison's silver Mercedes roared down the alley, engine howling, headlights blazing like twin suns. She wasn't thinking anymore. She wasn't even seeing. She was raging. "Get back here!" she screamed, slamming the horn. Emily turned, gripping Janelle's hand. "She's not stopping!" Janelle gasped. "Keep running!" They reached the intersection where the alley met the main road, just as a delivery truck turned the corner. The driver saw the silver flash too late. Bam! Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The Mercedes spun, crashing into a light pole, sparks raining across the street. Janelle and Emily dropped to the ground, trembling as the air filled with smoke and the smell of burning rubber. For a moment, everything was quiet, except the hiss of steam. Janelle pulled herself up, heart pounding. "Emily, you okay?" Emily nodded weakly, blood trickling from her temple. They looked toward the wreck. The car was totaled. Madison's body slumped over the wheel, her hand twitching. "Stay here," Janelle whispered, rushing toward the smoke. "Mom!" Emily shouted, crawling behind her. Madison stirred, face pale, eyes dazed. She tried to open the door, but it was jammed. Janelle tugged on the handle. "It's stuck," Emily screamed. "Mom, please, just stay still." Flames flickered beneath the hood. Madison's eyes met Janelle's. For the first time, there was no hatred, only fear. Don't let me die," she whispered. Janelle hesitated. Every memory flashed. The humiliation, the laughter, the torn uniform, the world calling her a thief. For one split second, she could have walked away. No one would have blamed her, but that wasn't who she was. She grabbed the door, pulled harder until it gave way with a metallic crack. Smoke poured out. Janelle reached in, dragging Madison out just as the hood ignited in flames. They collapsed onto the wet concrete, coughing. Emily threw her arms around her mother. "You're okay. You're okay," Madison gasped, clutching Janelle's wrist. Her voice was trembling. "Why did you save me?" Janelle looked at her, rain mixing with tears. "Because hate already almost killed me once. I'm not letting it win again." Madison tried to speak, but her voice broke. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Emily held both women's hands as paramedics arrived, the world flashing red and blue around them. As they lifted Madison onto a stretcher, her eyes locked with Janelle's, filled with something new. Not love, not apology, but the first flicker of recognition. And then, as the flash drive lay forgotten in the street, one of the firefighters picked it up, studying the soaked metal piece curiously. He slipped it into his pocket, unaware that inside it lived the truth that could destroy or redeem them all. Later that night, at County General Hospital, Emily sat by her mother's bedside. Madison was alive, bruised, shaken, but different. Her voice had softened, stripped of its usual control. "Emily," she whispered, "what was on that flash drive?" Emily hesitated. "The truth, Mom. What you did to Janelle." Madison looked away, her throat tightening. "And now the world knows?" Emily shook her head. "Not yet." For the first time, Madison didn't look angry. She just looked tired. "I thought I was protecting our name," she said quietly. "But all I did was bury the truth." Emily squeezed her hand. "You can still fix it." Madison's eyes filled with tears. "Can I?" Emily nodded. "Only if you stop hiding." Meanwhile, Janelle sat in a waiting room across the hall, her arm bandaged, her clothes soaked and torn. Detective Malone arrived, holding a small evidence bag. Inside it, the flash drive. "Firefighter found this at the crash site," he said. "Looks like it belongs to you." Janelle stared at it. "That's the proof." Malone nodded. "You want me to release it to the press?" Janelle looked toward the window where she could see Madison lying in her hospital bed. "No," she said quietly. "Not yet." Malone frowned. "Why not?" "Because she needs to tell the truth herself. The world doesn't need me to humiliate her. It needs her to face what she's done." Malone studied her face and finally nodded. "You've got more grace than most people I know." Janelle gave a faint smile. "Grace is all I had left." He left her alone. She stared at the flash drive, holding it tight like a piece of her own soul. And deep inside, she knew. The real storm hadn't even begun yet. The morning sun broke through the clouds, painting the city gold. But it didn't feel like morning. It felt like Judgment Day. The Hale mansion, once alive with laughter and luxury, now sat surrounded by reporters, police, and cameras. The world was waiting for one thing: Madison Hale's public statement. Inside, she sat at her vanity, a silk robe draped over her bruised shoulders. Emily stood behind her, silent. On the table beside her, the flash drive. Madison stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. "If I do this," she whispered, "everything ends." Emily's voice was steady. "No, Mom, it finally begins." Madison took a deep breath. Then she nodded. An hour later, the world watched live. Reporters filled the room. Cameras clicked. Madison Hale, the woman once untouchable, sat before the nation. Her voice trembled. "For years, I've lived believing I was above accountability. I humiliated someone who only ever showed me respect. Her name is Janelle Harris." The reporters leaned forward. "I accused her of theft. I tore her dignity apart in front of others. And when I had the chance to make it right, I lied. Because I was too proud. too afraid to lose my power. Tears streaked down her face. But the truth deserves to be heard. She plugged in the flash drive. The recording played. Her own voice filled the room. These people forget their place, so I reminded her. The sound of her laughter echoed through the speakers. The room fell silent. Madison buried her face in her hands. I am ashamed of that woman. Reporters captured every word, every tear, every tremor in her voice. Outside, the clip went viral in minutes. Across America, the conversation reignited about race, privilege, humanity. Janelle watched the broadcast from her small apartment. Her hands shook. It was finally out. The world knew. Her phone buzzed, a message from Emily. She told the truth, because you showed her how. Janelle's eyes welled with tears. She looked up at the sky, whispering, "Thank you, Lord. Let this pain mean something." Later that evening, Madison knocked on Janelle's door, alone, without makeup, without cameras. Janelle opened it, unsure. Madison's eyes were swollen. "I know sorry isn't enough," she said softly. "But I'm saying it anyway. I was wrong. All of it. You didn't deserve what I did." Janelle studied her, not with anger, but with the kind of sadness that comes from deep healing. "Madison," she said slowly, "you broke something that can't be fixed overnight, but you faced the truth, and that's a start." Madison nodded, tears falling freely. "What happens now?" Janelle took a breath. "Now you live with it, and I live free." For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Just two human beings standing where hate once ruled, now replaced by something quieter. Forgiveness. As Madison turned to leave, Emily stood by the car, watching her mother with cautious hope. Janelle looked down at her phone. Thousands of messages flooding her inbox from people around the world. "Thank you for speaking for us. You gave me courage. You reminded me I'm not invisible." And for the first time in her life, Janelle smiled without fear. She closed her door, exhaled deeply, and whispered to herself, "They tried to take everything from me, but they only taught me how to rise." Outside, the world was still buzzing, but inside, peace had finally found her. And yet, somewhere deep in that peace, a quiet question lingered. Was Madison truly done running from who she'd been? Or had this only begun another chapter of truth neither of them were ready for? What if the truth you've been hiding your entire life suddenly turned against you, not with words but with undeniable proof? The morning sun poured through the grand windows of the Whitmore mansion, but for the first time it didn't bring light. It brought exposure. The entire house was in chaos. Voices clashed from every room, and the smell of burnt toast lingered from a breakfast no one had eaten. Martha sat at the long dining table, trembling hands holding her phone. Her perfectly polished nails tapped nervously on the wooden surface. On the screen, a video played, shaky but clear. It showed her, screaming at Grace, ripping her maid uniform, calling her names that echoed through the internet like wildfire. The caption under the video read, "This is how the rich treat the people who serve them." Within hours, millions had seen it. Daniel stood behind her, silent but cold. He wasn't just angry. He was ashamed. "Tell me," he said quietly, his tone sharp as glass. "Tell me you didn't do this." I didn't mean it that way," Martha stuttered. "You know how people twist things online." "Twist?" Daniel interrupted, his voice rising for the first time. "You tore that woman's dress. You humiliated her, Martha. I was standing right there." Martha's breath caught in her throat. She turned toward him, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You're going to believe her over your wife?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. The look on his face said it all. Down in the servants' quarters, Grace sat quietly on her small bed, staring at the same video. She hadn't uploaded it, at least, not intentionally. The mansion's internal cameras had caught the scene, but someone had leaked it. Someone wanted the world to know. The phone on her lap buzzed. An unknown number. "Grace," a woman's voice said. "This is Kendra James from WDN News. We'd like to speak with you about what happened." Grace froze. She had never been on television before.
She didn't want attention. She just wanted peace. I don't know if that's a good idea, she said softly.
Grace, Kendra replied. The world is on your side right now. You have a voice, and people are finally listening. Grace hung up, her heart racing. Meanwhile, Daniel stormed out of the mansion. He needed space. He needed to breathe. The weight of everything, the scandal, the lies, the silent years of pretending, came crashing down. He drove aimlessly through the city, remembering the first day Grace came to work for them. She was quiet, polite, and always respectful. Martha, on the other hand, treated her like she was invisible, until she wasn't. That night, the video aired on national news. Martha's face filled every TV screen, her words echoing like a haunting confession. Reporters camped outside the mansion, flashing cameras through the gates. Grace couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Martha's face. The fear, the desperation, the regret. She didn't hate her anymore. She pitied her. But something inside Grace knew this wasn't over. Someone had sent that video to the press. Someone close. And they weren't done yet. As thunder rolled outside, Grace's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a reporter. It was a message with no name, just words that made her blood run cold. You think this is about you? Wait till you see what she's been hiding. Grace's hand shook as she read it. What did that mean? What was Martha hiding that even Daniel didn't know? She sat up, staring at the dark corner of her room. The storm outside roared louder, and for the first time in her life, Grace realized the real war hadn't even started. What if the woman who destroyed your life was hiding something far darker than her cruelty? The next morning, the mansion was silent. The reporters had been pushed back by security, but the tension inside was unbearable. Martha hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup smeared. She sat in her robe, clutching a photo of her and Daniel from happier days, before everything collapsed. Daniel hadn't come home. Grace, on the other hand, arrived for work as if nothing had happened. Her steps were slow, cautious. She didn't know whether to expect hatred or humiliation, but the house felt emptier, colder. She entered the kitchen, only to find Martha already there, sitting at the counter with a bottle of wine open at 9 a.m. You came back, Martha muttered, her voice brittle. I still work here, Grace replied softly, until you tell me not to. Martha gave a hollow laugh. You think I can fire you after all that? No, dear. The internet already made me the villain. If I fire you, they'll burn me alive. Grace said nothing. She poured herself a cup of coffee, trying to steady her nerves. Then Martha leaned forward, lowering her voice. Tell me something, Grace. Did you send that video? Grace met her gaze, unflinching. No, ma'am, I didn't. Liar, Martha snapped, slamming her hand on the counter. You wanted revenge. Grace didn't flinch. I wanted respect, she said firmly. That's all I ever wanted. The words hung in the air. Then something unexpected happened. Martha began to sob, not the dramatic tears she used for sympathy, but deep, raw, uncontrollable cries. Grace watched, stunned. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Martha whispered. You don't know what it's like to live a lie for years, to pretend everything's perfect when it's not. Grace hesitated, her anger softening. Then stop pretending. Martha's lips trembled. It's not that simple. You don't understand what's at stake. Grace frowned. What do you mean? Martha looked away, silent. But later that day, Grace noticed something odd. As she walked past Martha's private study, a room usually locked, she heard muffled voices inside. She peeked through the slightly open door. Martha was on the phone. No, it can't come out, she whispered. If Daniel finds out, it'll destroy everything. You promised this was buried years ago. Grace stepped back, heart pounding. What was Martha talking about? What secret was so dangerous that even her husband couldn't know? That night, Grace couldn't shake the feeling. So when Martha went upstairs, she slipped quietly into the study. The room smelled of expensive perfume and whiskey. On the desk, papers were scattered everywhere. Old receipts, envelopes, photographs. Grace flipped through them until one stopped her cold. It was a birth certificate, but the name on it made her knees weaken. Father, Daniel Whitmore. Mother, Grace Evans. Her breath caught in her throat. Her vision blurred. It couldn't be true. It didn't make sense. She was the maid. He was her boss. How could that be? Then she saw the date. It wasn't her. It was her daughter. Grace stumbled back, clutching the paper. Her mind spun. Years ago, before she started working for the Whitmores, she'd given birth to a child she thought had died in the hospital. But this paper said otherwise. Martha had taken her baby. Grace dropped to her knees, trembling, the truth slicing through her heart like glass. Everything, the cruelty, the humiliation, the fear, it all made sense now. Martha wasn't just jealous. She was hiding the one thing that could destroy her entire world. Grace's tears soaked the floor as the lights flickered above her. Somewhere upstairs, Martha's footsteps echoed down the hall. Grace wiped her face, clutching the birth certificate tightly. The mansion that once symbolized wealth now felt like a cage of lies, and Grace knew from that moment on nothing would ever be the same again. Wait a minute. If this is your first time in top-core American storytelling, do well to like, comment. Tell us the country you are watching from in the world. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share to your loved ones, friends, and family. Thank you for doing so. Let's continue. What would you do if you discovered the person who destroyed your life was raising your own child? Grace sat on the edge of her bed, her hands trembling as she held the birth certificate. The name Daniel Whitmore burned through her mind like fire. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. It couldn't be real. And yet, deep down, she knew. Every unexplained glance from Martha, every strange tension between her and Daniel, every time the little girl, Emily, had smiled at her with those same warm brown eyes, the eyes she saw in the mirror, it all suddenly made sense. Emily wasn't Martha's child. Emily was hers. The truth hit like lightning. Grace's entire body shook. She clutched the paper to her chest and began to cry. Not the quiet kind, but the soul-breaking kind that comes when years of pain collapse into one moment. She wanted to scream, to tear down the walls, to confront them both. But she couldn't. Not yet. She needed proof. That night, she waited until the mansion went silent. Then she crept up the grand staircase, each step heavier than the last. Her heart raced as she slipped into Emily's room. The little girl was asleep, clutching her teddy bear, her curly hair spread across the pillow like a halo. Grace approached her slowly, her eyes filling with tears. She gently brushed a strand of hair from Emily's face and whispered, "My baby." Emily stirred, mumbling softly, "Mama?" Grace froze. It wasn't the first time Emily had called her that by mistake. Martha always laughed it off. She's just used to having you around too much. But now Grace understood. Her daughter's heart had known the truth all along. Down the hall, a floorboard creaked. Grace turned sharply, and there stood Martha, her face pale, her expression unreadable. "What are you doing in my daughter's room?" she asked, her voice cold but trembling beneath the surface. Grace didn't answer. She held up the birth certificate with shaking hands. "You mean our daughter?" Martha's mask broke. Her lips parted, but no words came. "I trusted you," Grace said, tears streaming down her face. "You took my child. You let me believe she was dead. Why, Martha? Why would you do that?" Martha's hands trembled as she reached for the doorframe. "You don't understand. You weren't supposed to know. Daniel, he thought you left her. He thought you didn't want her." "That's a lie," Grace shouted. "I begged to see her. They told me she didn't survive." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "I was supposed to adopt a child after my miscarriage. But when Daniel found out the baby was alive, your baby, I couldn't let him know she wasn't mine. I couldn't lose him." Grace's chest tightened. "So you stole my baby and pretended she was yours. You let me work in this house, raising my own child without knowing it." Martha dropped to her knees, sobbing. "I thought I could live with it. I thought I could love her enough to make it right. But every time you looked at her, every time she smiled at you, I felt like I was dying inside." Grace stepped back, trembling with fury and heartbreak. "You don't get to cry. You took everything from me." Martha looked up, desperate. "Grace, please. Daniel can't know. He'll leave me. He'll hate me." Grace turned toward the door. "He deserves the truth." As she walked out, Martha screamed after her, "You'll destroy us all!" Grace didn't turn around. The truth was already doing that. Downstairs, thunder rattled the mansion as Grace stood in the center of the living room, clutching the paper, waiting for Daniel to come home. This time, she wasn't the maid. She was a mother, and she was done being silent. What if the truth that sets you free is the same truth that shatters everything around you? Daniel arrived home just after midnight, soaked from the rain, exhausted, his mind clouded with guilt. He barely closed the door before Grace stepped out of the shadows, holding the birth certificate in her hand. "Daniel," she said softly, "we need to talk." Her voice carried something he hadn't heard before, strength. He frowned, glancing between her and the paper. "What's going on?" Grace took a deep breath. "You need to see this." He reached for it, scanning the document under the dim light. The moment his eyes found his own name, his jaw tightened. What is this?" "It's your daughter's birth certificate," Grace said, her voice breaking. "Emily isn't Martha's child. She's mine." Daniel stared at her, frozen. "That's not possible." "She's mine," Grace repeated, louder this time. "Martha stole her from me. She lied to both of us." For a long moment, Daniel didn't move. Then slowly, his face drained of color. "Oh my God." He turned toward the staircase. "Martha." Within seconds, Martha appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing her silk robe, her face pale as marble. "Daniel, please, don't," he warned, voice trembling with rage. "Tell me she's lying. Tell me Emily isn't Grace's child." Martha opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her silence was louder than any confession. Daniel's chest rose and fell in heavy bursts. "You let her work here. You let her raise her own child without knowing. How could you?" Martha broke down, tears flooding her face. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I was desperate. I thought if I gave you a family, you'd finally love me again." Daniel turned away, shaking his head. "You didn't give me a family. You stole one." Grace stood still, every nerve in her body burning. Emily's small voice floated down the stairs. "Daddy? Mommy?" All three adults froze. Daniel knelt, his eyes softening as he looked at his daughter. His real daughter. Grace covered her mouth, watching as the little girl ran toward her and wrapped her arms around her waist. Something in Daniel broke. He saw, in that instant, every moment he'd missed, every lie he'd believed, every act of cruelty that had kept them apart. Martha fell to her knees on the floor, screaming through her tears. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please don't take her from me." Daniel's voice cracked as he said, "You already took her from her real mother." The room was filled with sobs, thunder, and a silence that carried the weight of years. Grace knelt beside Emily, brushing the girl's hair gently. "It's okay, baby. You're safe now." Martha reached forward, desperate. "Grace, please, please don't take her away from me. She's all I have." Grace looked up at her, eyes full of pain. "You took her from me when I had nothing. I begged God to bring her back. Maybe this is His way." Daniel stood there staring at the two women, one broken by guilt, the other by loss. He finally spoke, his tone calm but final. "Martha," he said, "you need to leave this house." She gasped. "Daniel, please." "Go," he said quietly. "You built your world on lies. It's time you live with them." Martha broke down completely. She tried to move toward him, but he turned away. She grabbed her keys and ran out into the storm, her sobs fading into the rain. When the door slammed shut, the silence that followed was different, peaceful, almost sacred. Grace sat on the couch, holding Emily, tears streaming down her face. Daniel stood before them, hesitant. "Grace," he said, voice trembling, "I don't even know how to ask forgiveness." Grace looked up at him, eyes soft but weary. "You don't need to ask. Just be her father." That's all she ever needed. He nodded slowly, sitting beside them. For the first time in years, the house felt like a home. Not perfect, not rich, but real. Outside, the storm began to fade. Days later, news outlets reported that Martha Whitmore had checked into a rehabilitation center. The mansion was sold quietly, and Daniel started fresh, away from the noise, the cameras, and the lies. Grace moved into a modest home nearby. Emily visited her every day after school. And one evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Grace stood in the backyard holding her daughter's hand, whispering a prayer of gratitude. She had lost everything once, her child, her dignity, her peace. But now she'd found something deeper, redemption. And as the camera faded on that quiet moment, a mother, a daughter, a sunrise, the narrator's voice would echo softly, "Sometimes, the richest people aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who finally find the truth and let love win." If this story moved you even a little, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful real-life story from Top Core. Share this video with someone who still believes truth always finds its way.